Welcome to our first instructional session on developing effective strategies for writing the short, focused, thesis-driven college paper. The talking points on this video are not a substitute for the text, so I would ask you to read the text and listen to these talking points as an extra learning tool, but not as a substitute for the content of the book, which covers them in more detail. As you know, there are three parts to writing an effective thesis-driven paper: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. It helps to know what the purpose is at each of those three stages, and the purpose for each differs. So I'd like to begin by talking a little bit about the purpose of writing an introduction. Simply stated, it is threefold. First, to arouse the reader's interest. Second, to state what you will prove or argue. And third, to state how you will prove or argue it. Those then are the purposes of the introduction. I would like to begin with some strategies for the first of these, how to get the reader's attention. And so we simply call this an attention getter, which is a way of introducing your thesis in a way that gets the reader's attention. The second part of the introduction, of course, will be succinctly and concisely stating your thesis. And then the third part will be to preview the criteria of analysis you will use to develop that thesis. In other words, if the thesis tells the reader what the paper is about, the criteria of analysis will tell them how it is being developed. There are 5 attention getters with which you can introduce a thesis: the rhetorical question, the quote, the definition, the graphic fact, and the scene setter. I would like to provide some examples of each of these, beginning with the rhetorical question. These strategies can also be used in combination as follows. You can open with a quote, which is followed by a question that in turn leads to your thesis. Or you can open with a quote followed by a scene setter that sets up a central research question, which then the thesis answers. Or you can open with a graphic fact or a definition that in combination with a central research question, which the thesis subsequently answers. So there are a number of ways to use these in combination. I'd like to model some effective strategies for each, beginning with the rhetorical question as an effective first sentence. Beginning an essay with a question or series of questions is effective for 2 reasons. It gains the reader's attention, and it simultaneously focuses the inquiry or the focus of your analysis. Here are some examples of questions which effectively begin a paper. Which is more important, the person's right to privacy or the public's right to know? Should gangster rap lyrics be censored for their racist, misogynistic, or nihilistic content? Should national parks be devoted to preservation or recreation? Is Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus the work of a fledgling or an accomplished dramatist? What are the causes and effects of binge drinking on college campuses? And more importantly, what should be done to solve the problem? So beginning a paper in this fashion with a question accomplishes the goal of gaining the reader's attention and focusing the subject of your analysis. For practice, I'd like in your journal to craft a question or a series of questions related to the focus for your mini paper assignment related to lame deer, or a question related to some other issue that's currently being debated in society, whether it's cloning or legalization of marijuana, same-sex marriage. Make a journal entry in which you craft a question by way of introducing that subject. A second way of beginning your paper is with a quote. This can be done as a freestanding single-space quote under the title, or as the first words of your essay, properly introduced by your own words, of course with proper attribution of the author, title, and parenthetical page reference. For example, I'd like you, again, to make a journal entry in which you retrieve a quote from Lame Deer and make an entry in which you record that quote word for word with the page number as a possible way of starting your paper. Okay, so let's move on to the third way to begin a paper, in addition to the rhetorical question or beginning with a quote, would be beginning with a definition of a key term. If, for example, you're writing a paper on whether women should be allowed in combat, an introduction that begins with a definition of combat can be an effective attention getter. Whether you're defining combat as push button or physical combat will obviously be a big factor in making your argument. Similarly, if you're writing a paper on whether date rape is really rape, beginning with a definition of date rape can be an effective opening. Likewise, if you're writing a paper on cloning, you might want to start with a definition of cloning. Euthanasia, similarly, an effective definitional beginning can be a good way to start your paper. Like the quote, it establishes the scholarly tone of the paper. Here's an example from a student's paper on should women be allowed in combat, beginning with a definition of combat: conflict, warfare, battle, close combat, fight, oppose, contend, struggle against. All right, a simple definition like this can be an effective way to start your paper. So again, in your journal, I'd like you to make an entry, number the entry, in which you list some important key terms related to the focus of your mini paper. And choose one of those key terms and write a definition or look up a definition for it. All right, let's move on to a fourth way to start your paper, and that would be with a graphic fact. By this, I mean a fact that packs some punch, that hopefully produces a visceral response in the reader, kind of like a mule kick to the solar plexus. Let me give you some examples of effective graphic facts. If you're writing a paper, say, on should private ownership of handguns or semi-automatic weapons be outlawed, you might begin with the following fact: 30,000 gun-related homicides are committed every year in America. Or this fact: in 1992, handguns were used in 931,000 violent crimes, a 21% increase over the 1991 total. Say you're writing on the subject, should women be allowed in combat, you could begin with the following fact: of the 174,000 active Marines, 9,300 are women, all of whom are gender segregated from their male counterparts throughout their training at Parris Island. If you're writing, say, on the issue of global warming and what should be done about it, or is it science fact or science fiction, you might begin with this fact: of the hottest average annual temperatures ever recorded on Earth, the top 5 have occurred in the last 10 years. Or this fact: the average American contributes 15,000 pounds of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere every year. In your journal, I'd like you to make an entry, in which you also date that entry, in which you list 5 facts related to your mini paper topic on lame deer. Then choose one of those facts and write an opening sentence to that mini paper based on that fact. There is yet a fifth way to introduce a paper, which I call the seed setter. What is a scene setter? This consists of a brief hypothetical dramatization of your attitude, opinion, or your thesis on a topic. It allows you to introduce your topic with a little color and sensory detail, which can go a long way to heightening the reader's interest in a paper that's going to be primarily including facts, statistics, quotes, logic, counterarguments. If handled concisely, the operative word being concise, 2 or 3, 4 lines, it can be an effective means of beginning a paper. For example, again, if the paper is should women be allowed in combat, and you wanted to begin with a scene setter, you might write the following hypothetical situation that dramatizes your opinion. 6 foot 5 inch, 220-pound John Chase lies gravely wounded between combatants in the Iraqi desert. 5 foot 4 inch, 105-pound Jessica Lewis heroically dashes to his side, exposing herself to enemy fire. She tries to lift and throw her brother in arms over her shoulder, but staggers under the weight and falls to a knee. A round of .50 caliber bullets then stitches her body, and both drop to the ground, her bright blood coagulating in the desert dust with that of her comrade in arms. Despite the advent of push-button warfare, the battlefield is still a place requiring physical strength in hand-to-hand combat, and therefore no place for the fairer sex. This is an example of how you can get the reader's attention with a concise, hypothetical dramatization of your thesis. It won't be appropriate for every topic, but certainly applies to many topics. So these then are 5 ways for introducing your thesis, for beginning your paper in ways that get the reader's attention, establish a scholarly tone, and announce what the focus of the paper is. Thank you very much. The next session we'll go on to the second part of your introduction, strategies for effectively stating a thesis. Thank you.